Friendly reminder, this meeting is recorded. We try to keep up with the notes on the wiki. Here's our current list of ESC voting members. And if you don't mind, let's do a quick round of intros. Can we start with you, Harel?
Hello, I'm Harel, OpenLineage committer. Been in this cause for a while. Great to see everyone here.
Thank you. And next is Julien.
Hello, I'm Julien. I'm the project lead for OpenLineage. Happy New Year. Today I have finally updated the registry proposal. So I'll mention that in the open discussion at the end.
Thank you. Next is Alex.
Oh, so Alex is just saying in the chat, sorry, I can't speak. I'm on the train. Happy to see you back. I'm Alex, VP Data of Data Galaxy, OpenLineage fan. Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you, Julien. Didn't see that. Next is Tatiana.
Oh, as well, so I'll be the voice. Tatiana is saying in the chat, hi all, I'm sorry I won't be able to speak either. I am a staff software engineer at Astronomer, and I'll try to contribute to the amazing work the OpenLineage team is doing. Thank you, Tatiana.
Yes, thank you so much for joining. No, it's not a good time for you in general. And last on my screen is Eric.
I can come on audio, thankfully. Just glad to be here from that one. Really excited to continue to be a part of the community, and Happy New Year to you all.
Thank you so much for joining, Eric. And I'm also an OpenLineage commuter. I am commuting from somewhere. We'll see how it ends. And committer and community manager. Our communication channels are here on this slide, so please follow us if you're not already. Take a look at the YouTube channel in particular for recordings of our most recent meetup in Warsaw with Google. On the agenda today, we have quick announcements, a recent release to talk about. We've got a recording of some exciting updates on the Airflow provider and discussion about job hierarchy schematics updates in Spark from Maciej, and then some discussion items. Yeah, that's the agenda today. Moving on to some announcements. We've closed our first ever annual ecosystem survey. Thank you for participating. The results will be published soon. Keep an eye on the website for those. We have a meetup coming up on January 31st in London. It will be our first in London, 6 p.m. at Confluent in Covent Garden. If you'll be able to attend in person, it's an in-person event. Please RSVP on meetup.com, and there will be a blog post with the link for your convenience. There's also a link in Slack. Let's see, I'll put this in the chat as well.
That sounds fun.
It's very exciting. We'll have a speaker from Decathlon joining us, as well as a speaker from Confluent. So it will be new territory for our meetup topics, and yeah, it'll be a great event. Speaking of Kafka, we have a talk coming up at Kafka Summit, also in London in March. Maciej and Pavel are key contributors, will be speaking there. Some of our key contributors, I should say, of course, because we have a number of VIPs, including some on this call.
Michael, there's a question in the chat. Alex is asking if this meetup is going to be online as well.
Unfortunately, our host cannot support a hybrid meetup, so this will be in person only. Recent releases. Since our last meeting, we've released 1.7.0. There's an important compatibility notice you should be aware of. The Airflow integration, the external one in the project, will no longer support Airflow versions from 2.8.0 and up. This is to encourage use of our official OpenLineage Airflow provider. The transition to the provider is fairly easy and straightforward. Please check out the docs for more information. And let me put that in the chat as well. In this release, we had in addition in the Airflow integration to add the parent run facet to all events because of some behavior on the consumer side. People were getting complete or fail events before start events. This takes care of that by adding a parent run facet to all events. As mentioned, also in the Airflow integration, we removed support for Airflow 2.8 and up to encourage use of the official Airflow provider. Thanks to all our contributors, including Kaj Bermuda, who had a number, more than here even, including fixes. And we had a number of fixes in this release. Check out the docs for the details. That's 1.7.0. Maciej couldn't be with us tonight, but he recorded some important updates on the provider and an ongoing discussion of possible improvements to the job hierarchy schematics in the Spark integration. And so I'm going to firmly cross my fingers that we can play this MP4 and everyone can hear. And going to do that now. Try that now.
Hey, I'm Maciej. I'm a software engineer at Getting Data and OpenLineage committer, and wanted to quickly provide updates on two different things in OpenLineage. First is recent changes to the Airflow provider. And if you look at changelog at Apache Airflow providers OpenLineage, it seems like there is like 1, 2, maybe some features, some big fixes, updates, which we can see things like update OpenLineage support for Redshift SQL, but it doesn't tell the whole story. So besides adding support for Redshift SQL operators, fixing a few bugs, we need to look at changes to other operators, and I have to thank Kaj Bermuda, who added support for multiple GCS and S3 related operators, such as GCS to BigQuery operator, S3 file transfer, S3 copy object, and lately copy from external stage to Snowflake object, as well as other bug fixes. And Jakub Derdziński, who added support for Redshift SQL, fixed a few other bugs, added support for Athena operator, and generally those guys do a great job of adding features and maintaining OpenLineage in Airflow. So that's the first thing. Second thing is something I'm working right now, is a job hierarchy for Spark. So for Spark, we have a structure which we named the job according to, and it takes Spark's upname, either the one generated by Spark or provided by user as Spark OpenLineage upname, or the one from like Spark session. When you create Spark session, you can put your upname, and this is what you will like see on Spark Web UI. Then action name, and action is not a name of like whole name, notebook or file, but an action that ends up as being written to the data, display some data, generally something that is an ending mechanism. And third is like data set that it creates. So this is great, but it has some problems, right? First is like we talked about actions and notebooks, and most people think that their Spark job is like their whole notebook or whole file, or multiple actions in like one notebook, right? But what we see from like integration side is just this action, right? That has some lazy action scheduled behind, and it's all executed only when you have an like action, right? And we don't know the fact that there will be next action, so we can't acknowledge other actions in like job naming. We can say that it's first action, second action, or something like this. And accordingly, we also can't send like one event for the whole application, because let's say you have to do actions in one Spark notebook. First is writing from dataset A to dataset B, just I don't know, copying it or like dropping some columns, and second from dataset B to dataset C. And in inputs of this job, the inputs would be A and B, and outputs would be B and C, which doesn't give you any information what the job actually did. So we need to have a granular, even schematics, but what we need to do is have more information about how they are related. So during the discussion, not only on this issue, but also in docs, actually, we have seen that we have consensus about some parts, and we have in OpenLineage a feature that's called parent run, which allows you to specify that this like run was scheduled by something else, or like is a sub run of something else, right? And right now we have an option to provide what is the parent run, the Spark application, but it's applied directly to all the actions. And the consensus is about having a single like run that contains all of the, that is a parent for all the actions, but it's kind of just reflects the whole application run. And the provided parent run that I was talking for is a parent of this this application run. So if you schedule from Airflow run of a Spark job that has few actions, you would have one application run that contains basically that is a parent of 3 actions, right? And itself, it has a parent, which is the Airflow that scheduled it. So it allows the OpenLineage customers, clients, consumers to basically correlate those jobs and know more about the actual execution. And this is very similar to how Airflow processes, how we actually emit the Airflow events, which is like we have an event run for DAG, when DAG starts and when DAG stops, and for each task in this DAG. So this is what we think is really good schematics for such a compound jobs, let's say. and I think it gives the most power to the consumers who want to display, aggregate this data somehow, and make sure that users understand how their jobs look like. Thanks. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Maciej. And I assured Maciej that the lag in the video was not a problem. I hope it wasn't for others. And here are some links to what he was talking about. So this is issue 1672. And here's a link to the PyPy doc and download for the Airflow provider. So if you have questions or want to contribute to this ongoing discussion, please check out the issue or message Maciej or on Slack or open a thread there. We'd love to hear from you. Okay. Moving on to our next topic, discussion items. We have one, but please don't be shy. If you'd like to add a topic, it's not too late. A topic we have at this point is 1672. If anybody would like to jump into this discussion right now.
Is it Jens, I think this is the one you've been pushing for, right? The simplify job hierarchy for Spark.
Yes, exactly. There were a few discussion items in that issue. I wasn't able to read Maciej's last response yet, so I'm a bit out of context.
No problem. Yeah. So recent. Yeah, I think his comment was recent. So Jens and others, please take a look.
Maybe we can try to have a quick discussion on this, Maciej. So I think you mentioned in that in your last comment that we have agreement on the first point, which is about using the parent facet, right?
So Jens, you're right. After we started the video, but Maciej couldn't join the meeting tonight, so the explanation we just saw was a recording. So you can't ask live questions to Maciej because he's not in the meeting.
Okay, then
sorry about that.
So Maciej is not here, right?
No, he's not. He recorded the explanation so that we played.
Okay, sorry. I'll get in touch with him and discuss with him.
That sounds good.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other items?
So I do have an item. Sorry, I didn't submit it for the agenda because I didn't know I was going to have time to do it. But I did update the registry proposal. So 2 meetings ago, we did a review of the OpenLineage registry proposal. And I think in particular, Sherry from Colibra had good feedback, and Maciej had some feedback as well. So if you want, I can just take a quick look at the recent updates. And I think, in my opinion, it's close enough to implement the first version of this and see where we're going. Sorry, finding the right tab. Let me share my screen. So this one, So what happened since last time we reviewed this is Shiri added her contribution to this to the proposal. So here is some things that have been added. Sorry, there's a merge commit that has been particularly, here we go. So so some clarification, consumers can independently discover and support custom facet. OpenLineage user can easily explore which producer and or consumer best meet their compatibility needs. Acceptance guidelines: to claim a name, an entity must have either documentation or a test sample. Reserving a name prior to public functionality is discouraged. So some more guidelines on how to do this, not claiming name before you know how you're going to use them. Giving examples here. And so there were no more examples. Right, and there's some constraints about the core repo not being able to guarantee external things. And I added today as well. So I rewatched the recording of that meeting. We did the review 2 meetings ago, and I integrated some of the feedback that was in there. So I think two main things I took off from my notes was we discussed that the core facets would be moved in the registry under the core name, and they would follow exactly the same rules as all the other custom facets in the registry. And so that would be nice to be consistent, and that would validate how we do things and no exceptions, right? And the other things we talked about is that the examples that are currently living here, so if I open this link, if I open this, currently we do have examples, right? So for each facet, you have a folder which contains examples of that facet. And then the CI will use the schema of the facet to verify that it can parse the examples. So you guarantee that the the facet schema is well formed and can be parsed into a JSON schema, and that the examples is valid against that JSON schema. So there's more validation about consistency, and we don't make mistakes in submitting schemas that are not valid or like don't do what we think they're doing. So the idea is to move that as part of their registry as well, as part of, so that would be, this is, if I open this up a bit, inside the registry under a given name. So if it's for the core facets, it's under core. If it's for airflow facets or other things, they would be under their name. And under examples, facet name and number.json. So I'm using the same convention that is currently done, but I'm moving them in the registry so that they're collocated with the facet therefore. So those are the two things I added here. I think other thing, maybe it's in a different commit. So if you look at the spec, view this. Right, so from the examples that Shiri added, right, there's some also additional metadata available in the examples here to show documentation at what use case, therefore, so we can add more documentation on those use cases. It's just some details that he added to this. So I would recommend people give another look. So this is proposal number 2161. The PR is 2228. You know, this will be the first version of the registry, and I'm sure we'll improve it over time as well. It's trying to be, you know, open for extension, in particular paying attention to, you know, we discussed last time that here we have, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong side. Things are objects, right? So there's lots of room for adding new metadata in the future if we want to extend this information. So I think the goal would be to manage the first version of this and start the implementation, and then we can improve it as we start using it. Any comment on this?
What's the format for the spec versions here? Would we need to enlist each of the versions, or do you accept greater equal or less equal?
That's a good question. I think this is right now. I think it's exact only, but this could be extended in the way you mentioned. I think yeah, this was added by Sherry as well. So please feel free. I think you can tag comment in the PR, and I would tag Sherry in particular on this comment so that she sees it, and Sherry Cabral, and then we can comment. I think we can discuss further on this, on the extension of these versions. And so for people watching the video, there's some applauses from Eric. Thank you. And Alex, who's on the train, says it looks great.
Yeah, and I know if Shiri were here, she would say how happy she is to see the progress on this. We've been working on it a while. So
Yes, and thank you very much to Sherry, who's been a driver in this conversation. Okay. That's it on my end.
okay, we have one more item on the agenda. That's open discussion.
I'd like to share some learning since our last call, if that's okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I'm glad to report again to all the folks in the community that we're continuing to see growing demand and adoption, which is quite exciting. I know it makes everyone here on this call very happy. And one of the things I can also relay is that, and I think it's because OpenLineage is really perceived as something that can drive meaningful business value. I'm not seeing any hesitancy at all from any organization saying that, you know, we don't think OpenLineage is mature enough to adopt it because the perceived business value is so big. People are really pressing forward. And some of the things we learned, you know, we talked, and I've mentioned briefly, maybe not in specific detail, but about the need for better documentation. I just want to relay a couple of things that we've learned. If you think about the journey of an organization to discover OpenLineage, learn more about it, eventually implement, and then finally get to the point where they're really generating that business value from the framework. What are really the ways that we can really accelerate adoption for any given organization so that we can get to the next one and keep going? We're seeing two real areas where there's ability and opportunity to optimize for speed to get people moving. The first is just making sure we have all things like proper versions of everything in place, and it's clear all the stakeholders understand that. So we've been developing an Airflow plugin that essentially provides a report on this and helps us avoid any misconfigurations, which then are going to cause some problems that we have to figure out down the road. Excuse me. So we're looking forward to potentially sharing that with the wider community to adopt. Subsequent to that, what we're seeing is what can often take a lot of time is for any given implementation, really understanding and diagnosing whether the organization can hit the ground running and sprint towards getting to that business value, or if there is a particular piece of the framework that is going to need to be built up for support for them. So it's that time period of diagnosing if there are needs that we need to communicate back on behalf of the organization to the community to help give you signals about what's the next thing to build. That process, I think, likely for all of us, could be accelerated. So I'd love to hear ideas about from the community as to how we might attack that and just make it easier for more and more adoption to happen. So thanks for giving me an opportunity to share. And again, thanks all for all your support of the community.
Yeah. Thank you. I know others will want to chime in. Is there a specific document, Eric, that you have in mind that you think would really be helpful in terms of, is it like version requirements? Are there particular tools where we really need the coverage information better presented in the
Yeah, I can. So two real pieces here when it comes to versioning, just making sure you've got everything aligned as needed. It's not necessarily that it's not well documented. It's just all the stakeholders don't necessarily know the details. So to get all those humans aligned, this plugin we think is going to really identify things that need to be done to press forward for the organization that's implementing OpenLineage. That we think we might have covered with this plugin that I talked about just a bit earlier. But it's the latter, and I can give an example. We have an organization that's really fired up about OpenLineage, and they use Glue. And in our conversations with them, we didn't have that knowledge in our pocket to be able to, communicate to them that the community is really invested in building out support where it's needed. So it was almost like we got them going, and then we had to put on the brakes and let them know that some of their expectations, we're just gonna have to work with the community to try to build support there. So, I'm not going to put out any specific document requirements. I'm just going to say I think that there's a need for all the folks that are adjacent to the core community that's committing, who knows this inside and out. What is the boundary or the threshold of support? And if we can have access to that, and perhaps I'm ignorant of a place this might be pristine where I should look, but that will just allow us to again, get that organization implemented on OpenLineage up and running and showing the business value to other stakeholders in the organization. So it's really a problem statement that I wanted to put out there, and not really a proposal specifically as to what sort of documentation would specifically attack that.
It's great information to have.
Yeah.
So for example, what Spark versions you can get column lineage from, that kind of thing? Or
yeah, that kind of thing is oftentimes what we'll do is we reach out to folks in the community. The support is wonderful. We always appreciate it and the community who gets back to us and is helpful on that. But if we can get at that information async, one, we give more time, I think, to the community to push out and build more support. But then again, we can further accelerate adoption of the framework, because the momentum's there. We got lightning in a bottle, I think, this community. And I'd love to see us, as a community, really push for even faster growth this year. It'd be wonderful.
Mhm.
That'd be nice. Yeah.
Are
Okay.
any other folks on the call? I'm sorry. Any other folks on the call experiencing similar things? I'd love to hear if anyone else is feeling the same.
Yeah, I think, Eric, if I understand it correctly, what Michael also replied is that you're asking about better understanding sort of what features are supported on different integrations across different versions of those systems. And I think, yes, that's also something we've come across, and that would probably help us, especially on our end. We're not quite the Spark experts on our side. We communicate with the team that is, and then we also communicate with the OpenLineage community, and there's sort of quite a lot of back and forth. It would probably help to have those sort of questions answered in a single place.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and I would love to share a new resource on the subject of this exact subject, and it's the README, the main README in the root directory of the GitHub repo. Jakob, whose name came up earlier on the call, recently contributed an integration matrix that should help a little bit. So do check that out. And I would encourage folks that as you learn more from what customers need, don't be shy about opening issues, and we'll keep track of those as they're open, and tackle these very important, documentation tasks as we can. The plugin is really exciting to hear about, and do you have plans for that, Eric, that you can share? Or more plans, I should say.
I'm sorry, Michael. I was opening up the repo and looking at the integration matrix. Can you repeat your question?
Just asking if there's any more you can share about the plugin. That sounds really interesting.
It's early days, but what I can do is, how about I follow up in the community Slack, and then that way everyone can get more exposure to this, because we know this could be helpful for other orgs too. And at the end of the day, we just want to get people that are working on data teams the visibility they need around all of this, right? So, if we can that's one way that Heartland can contribute. We're really happy to do so. So bear with me a bit, stay tuned, and I'll come back in the community Slack.
Yeah, +1 on that.
Awesome.
I think maybe on this integration matrix, I just had a quick look. That's a good idea. Maybe we can expand on that a bit further. So I see there's basically the source system is represented in table level, column level lineage, but then there's more. I guess the facets, maybe the types of data sources that are for which lineage is tracked from each of those systems. So we had some issues with Iceberg support in Spark recently, and weren't able to kind of figure out from which version onwards this was supported. And so that took a bit of investigation from our side. And maybe there are other dimensions to be reflected.
Very helpful. Thank you. All right. Well, thanks, Eric, and thanks everyone. Any other topics for open discussion? Right. Well, thank you all for joining. Good to see everybody, and we'll be back next month. And in the meantime, hope to stay in touch on Slack and coordinate on these and other issues.
Well,
Thank you, folks.
bye-bye.
Same as well. Happy New Year.
You too.
Happy New Year. Bye-bye.